Somebody told me, I was on Twitter, and people sometimes pop off on Twitter when they're having these conversations, but they said something that sometimes is true, sometimes is not, but I don't necessarily think it's true, take it in the aggregate. They said, Jamal, those polls are BS. I don't know that. I told them I don't know that at all. I don't even know that I or you exist per se, or I think I said I don't know that you exist. So I can't necessarily know whether those polls are. I guess my point was, yes, sometimes the way people do polls, they try to game the system. And you can never take one poll as being the entirety of anything. So don't misunderstand me when I talk about polls. However, when trends are being seen within the context of those polls, I think you need to pay attention to those trends. I think those trends are utterly fascinating. There is a poll that has just been released by Reuters. That poll shows something that is a fascinating dynamic that is being seen for the most part in most, if not all of these polls. This could be good for Joe Biden, but it also could be bad for Joe Biden. And I'm going to explain what I mean. In the new Reuters poll, they got further into it than just asking, who are you voting for? Or who are you voting for? They went further. They asked, who do you believe is best on one issue after the next? Meaning, who do you believe is best on environment? Who do you believe is best on environment? Who do you believe is best on healthcare? Who do you believe is best on immigration? And guess who came up as number one on all of those? Meaning all of the issues, all of the main issues that the Democratic Party care about. Who do you think is best on? And guess who came up? Pregnant pause. Bernie Sanders. He beats the entire crowd on all of it when they ask, who do you think is best on these issues? Second question, who do you think? Who do you think? Who would you vote for? Guess who they got? Guess who won that one? Joe Biden. Now you may scratch your head a little. Wait a minute. Especially if you're a lefty. How can you say that Bernie Sanders is better on all of the issues that you care about and still say that you're going to support Joe Biden? Because there's one issue that they also care about that conflicts completely with what they, or at the very least they think, some of them think, it conflicts with what they want. I've made this point before. You can see it in the polling. This notion of hope, meaning what I want and vision, versus fear, what I'm terrified of. And what they want from the standpoint of vision is, we want these policies that Sanders wants, and we think this guy's better on them. By the same token, what they fear is Trump winning again. And so the one issue that overrides all of that stuff is terror. In which case, they believe that Joe Biden has a better chance of beating Trump. And because of such, despite choosing Sanders for all of these issues, they still fall on this notion of, all right, I'm going to throw my support behind Biden. Isn't that fascinating? I find that to be utterly fascinating. And the catch here is, for Joe Biden, yes, but that's soft. That's a soft support. And that support is entirely dependent on people believing that you are the better choice. If Joe Biden loses the first 3 states, that will shrivel up. My point is that these people have things that they want. This notion of what we want. And the moment that they believe that they can get both out of Sanders, that will change. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This content is brought to you by you because they demonetize pretty much all of these videos. Bernie Sanders. I keep saying he's surging. And you could see it in the polling. 1 in New Hampshire, 2 in Iowa. I think he was beating Trump by like 14 in Michigan in one of those other polls that recently came out. Surging to number 2. Meaning, in the upcoming states, with the exception of South Carolina, Sanders is either in number 1 or within spitting distance of number 1. And you've seen him rise in the polling since coming back from the heart attack. He's been doing well. Now, the mainstream media, for the most part, has been trying to pretend that he didn't exist. CNN has did everything in their power not to mention Bernie Sanders by name at all, despite the fact that he was #1 in their own poll, even going so far as to mislead or just outright lie about the poll. Their own poll. If I'm not mistaken, I still have it up. CNN's own poll. Warren does not have 21% in this poll. They got their own graphic wrong. They will claim incompetence. I would just say they flagrantly lied. I want to look at this new poll. And I'm not going to keep this long because it's a poll. I'm going to get the quick ones out the way. Joe Biden, #2 spot. #2 spot. 22%. Warren, 11%. Sanders, 15%. Sanders is in #2 spot. He's close to Biden. I keep saying Biden's support is soft. It is paper. Or I should say toilet paper soft. And nobody else, matters in this case. Next one. Who do you think is best on immigration? Because you've seen it. Joe Biden, they're given the #1 spot. 22. Sanders, 15. Who do you think is best on immigration? Sanders, 16%. Biden, 13%. Warren, 10%. 37%, I have no idea. I appreciate the honesty. Who do you think is best on healthcare? Sanders, 24%. Nobody else is close. Warren, 14%. 15%. Biden, 14%. This is after November 4th, November 1st. When did Warren release her healthcare plan? She released her healthcare plan. Yeah. So this was after she released her healthcare plan. This is after. We are going to find out if Warren has a glass jaw. Because ultimately, after her releasing this plan, people still said, we trust Sanders more. Why do you think that's true? Think about it. Warren is on the campaign stage. Warren would not say she would increase taxes on the middle class. That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense. I know that she was petrified in saying so. I know that she did not want to be caught on stage making that point because she didn't want the Republican Party to river on it. But Warren's first argument was correct and sustainable. I hope you understand what I mean. Yes, she was going to be attacked for saying it, just like Sanders is going to be attacked for saying it. But nobody in their right mind, it's the reason the news media kept asking her, are you going to raise taxes? Are you going to raise taxes? Are you going to raise taxes? Bernie Sanders said you're going to raise taxes. Bernie Sanders, being honest, he's not hiding the ball. Amy Klobuchar, Joe Biden, what was their argument? What is the argument that they were making against Warren? She's being dishonest. She's not telling the truth. Because the public, just like the media, just like I know, is that in order to pay for single payer, you have to raise taxes on the middle class. Warren's trying to hide the ball on this front. The public expects it. The public is not entirely shocked by it if at the very least you can max out what they're going to get from the standpoint of head to toe in regards to healthcare while lowering the amount that they pay. Meaning if they pay in taxes, then the amount goes dramatically down and their wages goes dramatically up. They're not going to complain that you're going to moderately raise their taxes. The public expects it. When Warren says, I'm not going to do it, I think that's a contradiction personally. I think the public looks at that and says, I don't know how you're going to do that without raising my taxes. I don't buy it. It's just like Obama with the individual mandate. Obama said he wasn't going to do it. Clinton said he was. And Obama ends up doing it anyway. This plan will most likely get scrapped as unworkable as the legislative branch starts to go through and try to figure out how to get health care done, depending on the president, meaning if that president was Sanders. I think she hurt herself on this. I could be wrong. I strongly suspect in the debates, and I'll do a video on this by itself, that when Warren gets into the next debate, she will find that she will have a hostile crowd that will have picked through everything in that plan that is wrong and hit her with it, especially on this one very specific issue. Are you going to raise taxes on the middle class? And how are you going to push through your single-payer healthcare plan without doing so? You are over promising savings on things like immigration and military, things that you don't even know if you can get through connected to healthcare, not to mention you voted for the military budget, while downplaying expenses. That's what they're going to say. And that is going to be a mantra that it gets repeated from Joe Biden and Amy Klobuchar and maybe even the other contestants in the race, depending upon how vicious they want to go after Warren. Biden has already been lying about stuff he's getting desperate, let's say it that way. So he would have less fucks to give in attacking her. I could be wrong. Mark my words, though. All right, next one. Environment. Bernie Sanders, 20%. Nobody else is close. And notice this. Joe Biden gets the nod over Warren on environment. That's extraordinary. Because understand what that means. Warren has aped Sanders on all of this stuff. She's aped him completely. So how does Biden get the nod if Sanders is the guy who's in the number one spot? I hope you understand what I mean. That doesn't entirely make sense, right? If Warren has been aping Sanders, which is true, on all of these policies, which is true, then how on earth is Biden this close in healthcare? I mean, he's like 1 point under Warren on the healthcare. And even under this notion of immigration. I mean, look at this. 16% Biden, 13% Warren, 10%. It's almost as if they don't believe her. Here's another one, environment. Warren has aped Sanders with a multi-trillion-dollar environmental plan. Biden, not so much. But look at this. Joe Biden gets the nod over Warren on environment, with Sanders taking the lead over everyone. This poll is so weird. Look at this one. Economy. Sanders, 20%. Biden, 17%. Warren, 13%. Again, how are these people coming to these conclusions? Now, the reason I say this is, if you accept that Bernie Sanders is the Democratic Socialist in a race, yes, I do. If you accept he's a true believer, yes, I do. And the public accepts he's a true believer because they've been calling him a radical the entire time. So they they keep calling him a radical. They establish he's a radical. They accept he's a radical. Okay, fair enough. I have no reason not to accept it. And they're saying this guy is best on all these policies because he cares about these policies. Fair enough. If Warren has been aping Sanders, and this is an ideological question, why wouldn't she be number two? Isn't that weird? And yet she's not. They're going with Biden. I suspect that what's edging out here is, in spite of the question that they're asked, meaning who's better on environment and who's better on healthcare, in spite of the specificity of the question, there's more that is being edged into this. Meaning there's more that they're edging in from the standpoint of Biden, or they have perceptions of Biden that aren't entirely indicative of reality, or they don't trust Warren. I don't know which it is, but I find it fascinating. Because keep in mind, despite Bernie Sanders being number one in all of these different slots, they still give Biden the nod in regards to support. Biden gets 22% in this poll, Sanders 15%. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Who's best on the economy and jobs? Bernie Sanders, 20%. Biden, 17%. Warren, 13%. Who is most likely to beat Trump? Biden, 29%. Nobody else is close. Bernie Sanders, 16%. Isn't that fascinating? Oh, I see. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? I find that utterly and entirely fascinating. This poll is consistent, meaning, at least from the standpoint of people believing in their minds that Joe Biden can beat Trump. But if you notice, Sanders is close. Well, when I'm saying nobody's close, but I'm making the point that Sanders, where is it? Right here. 29%, 16%. Sanders. What is that, 13 points away? If this number gets closer, Joe Biden's campaign will shrivel up. If this number gets closer. Harris, 11%. Warren, 11%. And nobody else is even nearby. Who's a strong progressive? Bernie Sanders, 18%. Warren, 16%. Biden, 12%. They think Biden is a strong progressive, 12% of them. That's awesome. Who can unify the Democratic Party? Joe Biden, 19%. Now that one is shocking to me. Because it makes me think that these aren't entirely lefties that are answering this. Lefties know that the Democratic Party hates them. They're not shocked by that. They know it through and through. They were around when Sanders was cheated. So when they would look at it, will Bernie Sanders unify the party? I don't know if Bernie Sanders can unify the party. What I do think is that he could expand the voter base. Meaning the 50% of people that don't vote may come out to vote if they believe that they're voting for something and that they're invested in the candidate that is in that office trying to get through those policies. That's what I think. Unification of the party. I don't entirely know what that means. The corporate Democrats hate his guts. They're not going to go on board for that. By the same token, lefties hate their guts. So they're not going to be on board for that candidate either. If you're looking at this in a corporate Democrat way, meaning who could a corporate Democrat be okay with, then I think you might end up with a Warren. And she could sucker a bunch of lefties into supporting her. The unification of the party thing is not my objective. My objective, if I'm being honest to some degree, is to burn it down and to rebuild it. Either they fall in line or they get out of line. That is a harsh strategy or harsh potential to take. But there are certain things that need to be accomplished that I don't believe can be accomplished with the dinosaurs that we have in office now. That's my thought. The unification of the party. I don't think Biden can do it. By the same token, I'm not even sure Sanders could do it. So, a new, different voice. Bernie Sanders, 13%. Buttigieg, 14%. Buttigieg is just gay. That's not a different voice. He's just gay. I hope you understand what I mean. And by the way, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying that just as an absolute. It's how he defines himself. It's what he is. Him being gay does not make his voice any different. He is, for the most part, Obama. He just so happens to be gay and white. I don't understand how that's a different voice. I hope you understand what I mean. That's like saying Obama was a different voice just because he was black. It wasn't a different voice. He might have been talking to hope and change stuff, but ultimately when he got in office, he was just a regular Democrat. You shouldn't give him credit or points for an identity thing. And his identity is not indicative of being different in regards to what he is saying, especially when the stuff he is saying is just corporate talking points. Just saying. Buttigieg, a different voice. Get out of here. But Bernie Sanders gets 13%. Warren gets 13%. That makes more sense, seeing that's out of kilter with the Democratic Party, and they even said Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Now, I don't entirely understand these. Oh, I know. Thinking about the candidate, they're inspiring. Republicans or Democrats, 72% say no. These are less important to me. The ones that are more important to me are these, because I find these to be the most interesting. Glassjaw. I put to the Democratic Party before I finish that they need to determine whether or not their candidate has a glass jaw, and they need to determine that in the primaries. The last thing you want to happen is for your candidate to get out of the primaries without any real contact and then get hit square on the jaw the moment that they get into the race because you ignored something in the primaries and that the candidates in the primary didn't go after the candidate sufficiently to get that stuff hashed out now. A vote for Biden is a vote for Trump. And you can even make an argument that a vote for Warren is a vote for Trump. Again, you can't take polling as the end-all be-all. So I don't show these as being the end-all be-all. I show these as a snapshot in time of the various campaigns making their pitches to the American public and what the American public is thinking in that very specific moment. I do find them, however, that certain consistencies are across the board in these polls. And the Biden thing, where people think he's more electable, that's consistent. Sanders, with this notion of the policy and being trusted. I think you will find that as the polling goes forward and you get more polling and more information in, especially recently with the stuff that Sanders has been saying, what you're going to see from a standpoint of trust may depend on whether or not Warren's plan is accepted and whether or not the American public actually believes her that the middle class will not have to pay or see a tax increase in order to get health care. I think it's weird to make the argument that the middle class should have nothing invested in their health care. And I think Social Security and Medicare are constructed in a way that is far more difficult to rip away because those people believe they have something invested in that health care, as opposed to this thing that Warren did, this kind of tactical switch. Kind of like, are you for reparations? Yes. If I think I can get some political advantage for that, yes. I think this is the same. She didn't want to say that middle class taxes had to go up. The American public expected it. The media expected it. Everybody expected it. And she didn't say it, which is why they hounded her so much on this. If the American public does not believe her and they think she is bullshitting them, then you will see these trust numbers get worse. If she gets on the stage of that debate and she cannot make a convincing argument on how she would keep middle class taxes down, and they believe the opposition that says you cannot do that. And God knows, I hope they bring up the Hillary Clinton and Obama debate where Hillary Clinton essentially told Obama he was essentially full of shit. And Obama said, how dare you, miss? I will not have an individual mandate. And he ended up with an individual mandate. Presidents don't write the legislation. That is an issue for the executive, legislative branch. This, at best, was always just going to be a showpiece. And it is one, however, that she's attached her name to. When Donald Trump chastised her for being Native American, and she had as much Native American as my dog Pitsu, that was a negative. That's something that hurt her and something she didn't have to do. She just folded in. I'm saying that this is something similar. I wanted you to see the polling from the standpoint of Warren. Michigan, Trump, Warren, 40%. North Carolina, Trump, 48, Warren, 44%. Florida, 46, Warren, 42%. Wisconsin, 47, Warren, 45%. Pennsylvania, 46%. Trump, 46, Warren, 44%. Arizona, 47%, Warren, 46%. This is a Siena College New York Times Upshot poll. Snapshot in time. But the fact that everything that is going on with Trump right now, they've attacked him relentlessly for 3 years. They've had one conspiracy theory after the next that the man was working with the Russians. And now they're trying to go through an impeachment hearing. And even now, despite all of that, this, in this moment, snapshot is true. I'll leave it here. Like, share, subscribe. My system is doing weird stuff. Let me make sure that you guys can see me before I leave. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Huh, that's weird. That's 0. All right, I don't know what YouTube is doing because I'm not seeing anyone here. So I'm going to say like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.